Hey guys, you're listening to a Stellar podcast, and since we're all in lockdown here in the UK, I'm going to try and get as far out of this house as virtually possible and chat to fellow creator, graphic designer, and photographer Michael Soledad. We chat about how he got started, going out on his own, his Instagram success, and his new podcasts. Hope you guys enjoy this one and take some value from it. So yeah, here it is. Enjoy. So, hey Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Craig, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good morning.
Good evening.
Yeah.
So it's morning time here in California, around 10 o'clock, and I think it's, did you say 6 p.m. around your
It's
time?
about 6 p.m. this time.
Okay.
So I've literally, like, I got this all set up because I've not done a podcast for a while. So I got this all set up and I was like, I'm an hour early. Like, I was just sitting there. I was like, oh no, I don't know what.
Don't feel bad, because I was actually doing the same thing.
Oh, really?
Maybe around 45 minutes before this.
Oh,
I was just sitting here drinking coffee, and I'm like wondering,
Just
should
dreaming.
Yeah, pretty much. I was actually wondering if I should start working on some other stuff,
Yeah.
or just prep myself. And from experience, I've realized that it's always good to just prep before you do anything, no matter how big or small.
Yeah,
So
that's
get
true.
yourself in that mindset, right?
So for like all people listening and stuff, just introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Oh yeah. So hello, my name is Michael. I am a freelance graphic designer and photographer. Craig and I actually met through Instagram.
Yeah, we
And
did.
this was a while back. This was a few months ago.
It was like, I think you didn't have that many followers back then. You still had quite a hefty following, but like
Did I?
you've properly exploded right now. Yeah.
I know it's a little.
It's crazy. Well done.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's a good way to really describe it. Crazy, because I wake up every day and it still feels like I'm in the beginning phase.
Yeah.
Which is I guess what I would like that to be the case, because I
Yeah.
don't ever want this to ever, I don't know, reach my head in some weird way. But yeah, I think maybe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had like around 5,000 or less subscribers or followers when I first
Yeah.
came across your account.
Yeah, and now you're up at
And-
40 odd? 40,000?
40 something.
Wow.
And it's funny because when you said that you were you wanted to invite me in one of your podcasts, I was so excited. I'm like, when is this gonna happen? This is gonna be the first time, because I've always dreamed of starting my own podcast
Yeah.
or being in a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm a big podcast listener.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's one of those things that I always daydream about. Like,
Yeah.
what would it feel like to be a guest in a podcast?
Yeah.
I just thought it was really cool because, as a kid, I've always, maybe you've done the same thing, but I've always dreamed of being a guest or doing a whole little radio show.
Oh, totally.
I don't know
Like
right?
me
So-
and my cousin that I usually do these podcasts with, we totally had a radio show when we were younger because they lived about 2 hours away from us. So we recorded little cassette tapes of like radio shows. Like, so I was a big
Yeah.
fan of like the Mighty Ducks. And
Oh, okay.
so I would just imagine a Mighty Ducks match in my head and like be the commentator for it. So, and now we're doing a podcast. So
That's cool,
It's
yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I kind of lost track there, but yeah, I basically am a freelance designer, and it just so happened that my account really grew, especially
Yeah.
in the last few months, that I'm getting a lot of traction.
Yeah.
I think is a good way to put it. And so I'm just trying to ride this momentum as best
Yeah.
as I can, because I don't know when this is going to end. I mean, this could end tomorrow, right? So
It could,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Trying
it's
to
good.
enjoy it.
Like, how did you find like your niche kind
Yeah.
of thing? Like, because like you go to your account, and for those of who are listening who haven't been to your account, it's great and it's so consistent, and your photos are so precise, and you can totally tell. Like, see if you're in the Explore feed and one of like another account uses your photo, you're like, that's Michael's photo. Like, because you're so like it's so aesthetically pleasing
Thank
to look
you.
at some of your photos. It's amazing.
You know,
So how
that's
did you like
sorry.
get into your how did you find that? Like, obviously again for people listening, you basically post photos of like tech and in and around your office and your desk
Mhm.
setups and things.
Yeah.
How, like, did you just take a photo of your desk one day and it just exploded, kind of thing?
I literally did exactly that. First, I should probably address how much I appreciate what you just said,
Oh,
and also, and the reason I really appreciate that is you don't know this. I mean, the only person who really does know this is myself. Is that I've struggled with consistency. I've struggled with trying to find that niche. I've
mm,
struggled with trying to find my own voice, my own style. I specifically know what post that was, and I can scroll through my feed right now. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but
yeah,
I know exactly what post that was when I said, I wrote it down and I said, I really want to find my own style. I really want to find my own, my own signature, I don't know, like photo that when
yeah,
people see it, hey, that's Michael. And I
yeah,
remember specifically editing that photo, and I said, I think I like this, but this is an experiment, and we'll see how it goes.
yeah,
And through the like what maybe 2 years of using this, I realized one thing is that it's not really going to come to you right away
mm,
because it's an evolving thing, and just like with most things that evolve, you really have to experiment a lot, and that's what I did. I experimented, and a lot of us, I mean, maybe I'll just talk about myself. I struggled with experimentation because I
yeah,
feel that it was detracting from um, my goal, right? Like
yeah,
finding that consistent thing. But then later on, I realized that you really can't find anything until you tried everything.
yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah, so that's what I did. I just tried different styles. I tried different editing techniques, and I found something that I liked like a lot. And I said, I just really, yeah, I really like this. I don't know if people will like this. It just happened that they did.
Yeah,
And but I still kept changing it. I
yeah,
still kept changing the style. But then I realized that I really gravitated towards that one particular mood or style of photo editing and just photos in general,
yeah,
and I just stuck with it. So it's really how I would edit my photos,
yeah,
and so that's how I found it. Just experimentation. And going back to your question, I literally just took a photo of my desk one day, and I can tell you who my inspiration was. It was Aral Tasher, I think is how you pronounce his name.
okay,
He has a very big account, and he is a software engineer, if I'm not mistaken. I actually met him in person, and it's really, really cool, really down to earth guy. And I told him this. I said, when I first saw your photo, he was basically working, and he took a photo of his desk.
yeah,
And that resonated with me. And I said, I want to take a photo of my desk. I don't know why. I don't know who is interested in this. I mean, his photo I thought was really cool. I want to do the same thing.
yeah,
But obviously, my desk doesn't look like his. I had like an old IKEA desk, and it was really plain and simple. I just did that
yeah,
and found this whole segment of Instagram, this
yeah,
whole space in the internet where people appreciate desk setups. It's a
yeah.
weird thing. Yeah.
I think it's because like everyone's got a desk. You know what I mean? Everyone
Hmm.
has desk envy of someone else, and
Yes.
it's that way where you're always at your desk. Everyone's at their desk, and it's almost personal to them what they've got on their desk. Like they'll have either photos or they'll have little trinkets and things, and just seeing it's almost like an insight into someone else's life. You know,
Yes,
it
that's
sounds very philosophical, but it's true.
no, that's a very good, I would say, an accurate way of describing it.
Yeah,
Because if I look back, I always tell this to my friend. Every time I think of the days when I used to work in a cubicle, the
yeah,
days when I used to work in an office, it really depresses me. Like
yeah,
depress it's a heavy word.
yeah,
Depression is a heavy word, but that's the feeling that I would get every
yeah,
time I'd think of these situations because it's devoid of life. It's devoid of your personality. It's devoid
yeah,
of anything. It's literally just an empty box. And so if you think about it, when you sit down at your desk, you don't want to feel that way. You want to feel
oh,
proud.
of
You want
course,
to
yeah,
feel inspired and creative. And
yeah,
I think, people might laugh and probably scoff at the idea of, having a really wonderful desk. And I get that comment. Like every now and then I would still get people who would say, why is your desk so, I mean, you put so much money towards your desk or your workspace. Are you really getting any work done? And to that, I answer, yes, I actually do. And I feel good about it. So there's more
yeah,
to it than just a space. But yeah,
Yeah.
desk envy, I've never heard of that phrase before, and I like that because that's definitely what I felt when I first saw Aral's desk. I
Yeah.
felt desk envy, and I said, I want an awesome desk too. Obviously,
Yeah.
I didn't start that way. I mean, I started with an empty one,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
No, that's cool. So, like, what made you then going back to you worked in a cubicle and stuff? What made
hmm
you take the leap into freelance and get basically becoming your own boss and things? Like, was there
That's
a point where it switched, like in your head, and you're just like, nah, can't do this
yes,
anymore?
yes. It was out of desperation.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, it was out of desperation. So I come from a family of um, a background of entrepreneurs, not myself, my family, my
Okay.
parents, my sisters, and I just never had. I was not built that way. Or at least I convinced myself that I wasn't.
Okay.
So I always said I'll just have a nice, comfy job, and that was the way I was brought up. I
hmm
would say I was brought up under the whole um, find a job and stay there and get, and I don't know what you call it nowadays, but basically pension.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
So stay as long as you can, and then yeah,
Retire and then yeah.
exactly. So our parents are like that. They were brought up in that generation, so I was kind of taught the same way. So when I first moved to California, this was about almost 20 years ago. I It was an eye opener for me because before then I used to work for my dad. He owned a business and it failed, and so we were forced to move because basically forced to find other ways to live.
Yeah.
And so my parents were still okay, but they were like, you know what, we'll send you to California and you know uh, try to make your own lives, basically try to find yourself. And I grew up like in a way very sheltered. So when I moved here, I was, I'm just trying to paint that picture
Yeah.
where, where my background is from and how my mindset was.
Yeah.
And so I felt very entitled. And so I felt that, hey, I used to work for my dad. I have a degree and I should have a nice, comfy job.
Yeah.
So from that point on, for the next maybe 15, 17, 18 years, that's all I was looking for, just
Mm.
a comfy job. And I felt that it was out there somewhere. But then throughout that process, I also started to feel that I guess that feeling of being trapped. Like I didn't want to work for someone forever. There's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of turning points in my life. And mentally or philosophically, I can name you one. And this came out of a conversation with my wife. My wife is a nurse, and she was telling me the story one time about this patient who was about, I think, 80 or something years old. And I guess one of the nurses was talking to him, and they were asking him, just like chit-chatting, asking him, what was your life like? What were you doing when you were younger? And this gentleman just painted this very colorful picture of his life. He was in the military, and he was an artist, and he was a traveler, and he did this and that, like so many different things of his life that you wouldn't even expect that he was that person, right?
Yeah.
And when she told me that story, I'm not kidding you, Craig, I lost sleep. And the reason why I lost sleep was that it made me look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I said, do I really want to be where I am right now? And at that point, I was a production graphic designer. So when I say production, it's mostly, there's some creative stuff, but a lot of them are just very specified. They were just make this text look like this, put this graphic here. So
Yeah.
there's nothing inspiring about the work.
Yeah.
And I said, do I really want to be like this? Do I want to look back when I'm 80 years old and when a nurse asks me, so what did you do in your life? And I would say, I sat in a desk,
Yeah.
at my work,
totally.
very uninspired. Yeah. And so that kind of just really, I guess, started that little fire
Yeah.
inside. And I said, this is not how I want to live.
No,
and then I
can
got laid
totally
off.
relate to that. Oh, really?
I did, yeah. I got
Did you
laid
do
off,
something,
and-
or did they? Did they just
No,
not have?
so when you get laid off, it's basically usually it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's the company. At least I've gotten laid off 3 times already.
Wow.
And it's funny. And in the beginning, I felt really bad because
Yeah.
I'm like, did I do something wrong? But it's usually the company's being acquired, or they're closing down, or the economy, whatever. In this case, which is the 3rd time in my career, there was a new guy that was brought in, head of something, and he just wanted to downsize. And so out of everyone in the office,
Yeah.
basically we had different offices in California, and the one that I was part of was the one that was performing the best.
Yeah.
We were known as like the best team, but we were the smallest team. I don't know why, but for some reason they wanted to cut our team.
Yeah.
And so they cut me, and my direct manager, was so upset because she was the one who was also kind of grooming me to be someone better. She
Yeah.
was teaching me how to be accountable with my stuff. And it just came at, I'd say, the perfect time, because that's when I was just getting that confidence to be someone that I can basically look at myself and say, yes, I can take care of this. I can be held responsible for this type of stuff. I got laid off. And so at that point in my life, I was like, okay, this is the real test then, if I can really take care of myself.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it, honestly, but that's how it started.
Yeah.
And I had a kid. I had a 2-year-old at that time, and I didn't want to
There's a lot of pressure as well then.
There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want my wife to be working for the entire family. So luckily I made a lot of good relationships throughout the years, and I basically leaned on that, and I reached out to people and just said, hey, I'm switching gears. I'm not changing careers, but it's a big change in my life. I basically tried to make it sound a lot less painful than just saying I got laid off.
Yeah.
One of those
Sugarcoat it a
relationships,
little bit so they
yeah, a little bit, try to put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
But one of those people, they directed me to someone else, and that basically led to one client and then multiple clients, and here I am today. So
Nice
I'm very
one.
thankful.
No, good.
It's a very long-winded story. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Because I know for myself, it's only just happened recently that I've gone full time on my own, because I've I basically stayed in university. I studied biomedical engineering, and I stayed in university, and I got my PhD and everything, and it just I just kind of stayed there because it was comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're just there. But of course, I made films on the side. I loved photography, and then I saw a little glimpse of my cousin reached out to me and said, "Oh, so and so is looking for a video," and it was like, "Can you do it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot," and I did it, and and I got paid for it, and I was like, "There's something here," you know what I mean? And I loved it, and it's not sitting behind a desk, or in my case, it was in a lab covered in blood, but I won't go into that story. But it's that way where something does click in your head, and you're like, I could make something of this. And then you go through the months. I don't know if it happened for you, but you go through the months of, could I do this?
Yes.
And then it's
definitely.
It's that way where it's just building up to a point where I basically just went to my boss, this isn't for me anymore. And he was totally understanding of it, and he was quite upset of me leaving because I was part of a team and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But he was totally supportive. And then it kind of came to just after Christmas, and I started telling people, yeah, I'm leaving. And then at the end of February, that was it. I just...
Can I just say,
Uh-huh.
I don't know you personally, but I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's a very hard thing to do.
It is.
I mean, honestly, I personally don't have the balls to do that. Right? Because, my situation came out of desperation, like I said.
Yeah.
I was pushed out of that comfort zone. I was basically forced out of it. And so because of that, I had to do something.
Yeah.
But for you to make that decision, that's very, very... I can never do that. And I wish, if I were to talk to myself, a younger version of myself, I would definitely say be more brave, be more courageous, because we don't know what's going to happen in life, right?
Exactly.
And if you're going to sit there because you think it's the right thing to do, or this is what everyone else is doing, we got to take a little bit of risk. And I'm very proud of you. That's awesome.
Thank
and
you.
you said this came before Christmas, you said.
Yeah, so I told my boss in October
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to leave, and he was like, "Oh well, we're sorting out funding for next year, so sit on it for a couple of months, and if you still feel the same way, come let me know," kind of thing. And I wanted to go see him like the day before we left for Christmas, and I didn't see him all day. I was like, "Oh no, okay." So then I
Mm-hmm.
had to wait till after Christmas, and then I went to see him like 1 or 2 days after Christmas, after the New Year, and just said, remember what we were talking about? And he goes, "Yeah, what's your plan?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm out." And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really good because my girlfriend Sarah, my now fiance Sarah, is like so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Hopefully we're getting married in November.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
but who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
Um, but she's like so supportive of it, and it was that way where if she's okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
then I've got nothing to lose really. Since I left, I've I've just been like fishing for work, and I've been getting work, and it's been good. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and everything's kind of slowing down to a halt.
Yeah.
But I've no regrets at all.
That's
But
great to hear.
but like you say, it was a tough decision to make. But
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'd be sitting there like every day at work just researching like film stuff or learning about something, not actually focusing on what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's that way where like I can't go on like this. I've just got to shift everything and do it. And like you say, if you don't try it, why like you never know.
No,
So
exactly. And that's a good sign too, because when you find yourself constantly daydreaming, constantly not being productive or
yeah,
effective at your own work, that's probably a sign that you're looking for something. But the reason why I asked you earlier if what would you have done
if
if
she
your
wasn't,
girlfriend,
yeah,
yeah, if she wasn't supportive, is because I feel that people who might be listening to this might be going through something similar
yeah,
where they're just looking for that little push, that little nudge, that
yeah,
little encouragement. And, you know, if I'm being real, you're not always going to get that.
true.
But
But
I
like I
think,
would I would say to I would say to
Mhm.
anyone in that situation, if you aren't happy, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then get out because life's too short.
Mhm.
And it might be hard if like parents don't approve or friends don't approve or your partner doesn't approve. But it's it's almost like a selfish thing in a
Mhm.
way because it's your own mental state that's got to put up with it.
Yeah, there's,
I don't know.
there's,
It's like I could be in a lot worse situation, so I can't really speak um, for everybody. But that's kind of what the message I would say. So
yeah. But I mean, think about it though. If the counter argument would always be, why would you go out do something that you love, right? Versus the safety of
yeah.
work.
Oh,
I mean, look at
totally.
us now.
Yeah.
What's going on with the world? Do you really think staying at work is being safe? Do you really think staying at that job guarantees financial stability?
Oh,
No,
exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Look at the world right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that you set out and try to look for something, it's a step towards trying to find something better. It's a step towards trying to find something bigger, and
Yeah.
that also means you're willing to grow. You're willing to learn. You're willing to sacrifice something for something better. I think that's much more important than just settling for something sorry,
Sorry.
settling for something that's safe,
Yeah.
because really there's nothing safe. And I think I'm coming from that perspective because I've been laid off 3 times.
Yeah.
So being laid off doesn't necessarily mean your performance is down. It's just the company isn't able to pay you anymore.
Yeah.
And so
I
no
think that's
matter what I
happening a lot
did,
at the moment as well. Like,
yeah,
there's lots of
that
people getting laid off and going on unemployment, and you're like it's hard.
now what?
It's
Yeah, now what?
exactly. Yeah.
You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But because you went out and tried to look for your own thing, that's a huge step already. And
Yeah.
so maybe someone's listening to this and saying, but my girlfriend or my wife, my brother, my sister, whoever, my parents don't support me.
Yeah.
This has to do a lot to do with accountability, right?
Yeah.
So you have to really think about it. You can't just blindly say I'm going to quit because I'm not happy.
Oh, for sure.
Because right? You have to think about it. Like, are you really not happy, or are you just bored?
Yeah.
Are you just whatever? But there's a couple of things that you did too that I think needs to be addressed, that is very important, and it's that you didn't burn bridges. You did it in a
No.
very proper way. You kept a good relationship with your boss.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome if someone said, hey, let's revisit this a couple
Yeah.
months or weeks from now and see how you feel. I mean, if I probably did that to my other boss, my boss was like, bye,
Yeah.
I don't care. Good luck. So you did what was, I really think in business and in life, it really boils down to the golden rule. Like when we were kids, just be respectful, be
Yeah.
courteous, be
Oh,
nice to
totally.
people, and they
Yep.
will treat you the same way. So that goes with business. And I think what you did was just very, I would say people don't address that very
Yeah.
often. And it's a very, very important step. And I think
Yeah.
you did the right thing.
Oh,
So
thanks.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I had to learn the hard way. So
Yeah. No, but like
cool.
I've definitely learned so much in the past few months anyway, of like being my own boss, and like even from things like organizing your like whole day. Like, see, when you've not got work on, not got paid work on, but you've got to get websites up and running, you've got to get things looking right, you've got to like be emailing people constantly, just asking, and even just following up and asking people how they are, like
Yeah, yeah.
maintaining relationships and stuff. It's just organizing all that is a massive learning curve for me anyway. I was like, I didn't do this
I'd say
before.
I'd say bulk of the work comes from that.
Yeah.
Most of the work that you are doing, if you are doing freelance or
for
you're
sure.
working
Yeah.
for yourself or whatever, comes like it's not pretty enough for Instagram.
No,
Because
yeah, totally.
it's all the sleepless nights, it's all the emails, the relentless emails, the relentless proposals, or how many no's you get, how many, like constantly you're being shot down,
Yeah.
and it's very discouraging. But obviously we don't talk about that because it's
Yeah.
not pretty enough. But that's really where the work is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So how are you getting on in like quarantine lockdown then? How are you? Like, are you still getting work, or what's happening your end? Are you struggling a bit, or are you flying
Oh,
high?
no, I'm definitely struggling just like everyone else. But
Yeah.
um,
It's weird.
not the
Like everyone, like there's this situation is hit everybody, but everybody has different problems. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
strange. It's like everyone's in the same boat, but again, nowhere near the same boat.
exactly. It's like we're all on our own little boats,
Yeah.
and some boats just have more holes than,
Yeah.
than others, right? So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer that question, I'm definitely struggling. In the first few weeks, my clients all were quiet,
Yeah.
and I completely understand that. It's like, oh, okay, well, this thing is definitely real. It puts things in perspective. You start to look at your clients as human beings
Yeah.
more than, and I think the same thing happened for me because some of my clients actually reached out. They reached out to me almost immediately, actually, and started apologizing and said, we're sorry, but I think we won't be giving you any work in the next few weeks. We hope your family's okay,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? Can I just say that I really appreciate that, because a lot of companies, their clients would just, they don't care if
Yeah.
they're not making money, if they're losing money, they don't really care about you.
Yeah.
But this one did reach out, and I really did appreciate that. And so again, it goes back to the whole, just be respectful and mindful.
Yeah.
And and courteous. I think it'll pay dividends later on in life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then so I've lost a lot of clients, or at least not lost completely, but they've really, I haven't
They've
heard from them in a
postponed,
while.
or they've
Yes. One started coming back. One of my major ones started coming back, but very, very slowly. And then they said, yeah, work still isn't as much, but here's something. But I chose, maybe because I've been through situations, when I say situations like this, not a pandemic, but situations where I had no work.
Yeah.
I've gone through this so many times already that I know the moment that it happens, that's exactly the moment when I start working. And when I say start working, I start doing something else. I start keeping myself busy. And
Yeah.
this is not to confuse being busy with being productive. So I try to be productive.
Yeah.
And how I did that was I started, you know how we always say, I want to do this if I find the time or
Yeah.
when I find the time. The truth is we'll never find the time. We have to make the time for that. And so this whole situation forced me to make time for other stuff that I've always wanted to do, which is make videos, even catching up on past clients and just emailing them and saying,
Yeah.
hey, you know, hope you guys are doing okay. Starting my newsletter, working on my website. These are
Yeah.
all productive stuff. These are
Yeah.
all things that will eventually help you and your business later on that would never even consider working on until this thing happened. So
Yeah.
I'm keeping myself busy and just hunkering down just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But you know what's also interesting is that I realized that there are two types of people who would they act differently in a situation like this. Some would say the world's going to end and let me just sit down here and be as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
Or this is a good opportunity for us because it's basically evening out. It's like the playing field is now even.
Yeah.
Right. So people whose voice cannot be heard before are just as loud as everyone else right now.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these brands, a lot of these companies are starting to come out of the woodwork, and they've actually started reaching out, which is cool. So if I wasn't prepared for any of this, if I wasn't working on my videos or any of my photos or any of my reviews, tech reviews or whatever,
Yeah.
they never would have reached out to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm keeping myself busy in that sense.
Yeah.
So I'm working with these new brands or these very young brands, and I'm like, let's see what I can do with this. Just like them, I mean, I'm fairly new.
Yeah.
I'm just starting off, so let's see where this goes. So it's another part of my life where I'm developing that skill.
Yeah.
Um,
And now's the
how I'm
perfect
keeping
time to
myself
do
busy.
it, kind of thing.
Exactly. How are you
Yeah.
doing, by the way?
Yeah, doing okay. Yeah, like same as you, had a couple of gigs lined up, like filming gigs lined up, and they've kind of postponed. They haven't cancelled, thankfully, but they've postponed things. And I've had one of my big clients who are now based in the US. They reached out to me saying, "Oh, we're looking to do some kind of animation stuff." So I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." So that's kind of something that I don't need to go and film, but they're like, "Yeah, we now do like online presentations, and we're really looking to spice them up a bit. So here's some animations and stuff like that." So it's kind of like I'm still getting work, but it's different work, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's
That's
cool.
which is kind of a curveball for me, but it's good. It's fun, you know?
Yeah, and those curveballs are actually usually the ones that will help you grow anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, right? It's like, again, it's just stepping out of your comfort zone. But
Yeah.
can I just ask you, because
Okay.
it's weird looking at your resume. It's like you have a PhD, you went to university, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and then I'm also a designer or an animator, an
Yeah.
editor. Wait a minute, like,
Jack of all trades, master of none.
so
That's me.
How did you get your? I can already tell that you are a creative at heart. So what's your background? I mean, how did you get into like this editing stuff in photography?
Well, basically, I started off in visual effects. So I was living at home. I was in university because I went to university, and because my dad was like, "You're going to university." So I was like, "Yep, cool, totally understand." Because everyone was going to university, so it's cool.
Yeah.
It's like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "My dad's a mechanical engineer, so I'll be a mechanical engineer." I was like, "Cool." Right. So I did 4 years of that, and then I did my master's in biomedical engineering, which is like medical devices and prosthetics and whatever. And then I moved into, or I stayed the same field, kind of, and was in cardiovascular devices, so heart implants and things. But in the background, I loved, like, I got addicted to YouTube and like people making videos. Like, I don't know if you know Freddie Wong and Corridor Digital, who do kind of visual effects videos, like almost parodies of video games and things.
I've never, no, I don't think so, but I'm going to look them up.
Yeah.
Sounds really interesting.
They're really cool. They're really cool guys. But I kind of got into visual effects that way, and it was like, oh, they made something explode. Let's see if I can make something explode. So I started learning all these kind of techniques, mostly like After Effects, and I moved into my first flat when I started my PhD, and of course I made a zombie film there, um, which is what you do when you're a filmmaker and it's your first
Right.
film, so you make a horror film. Why not?
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I did some visual effects. We did practical effects. I don't know. I just this whole like the filmmaking process. I love it, and it's really interesting to me, and how people make things or are able to create things and tell stories.
What did your
And
dad
it
say?
was, he was fine with it. Like he was. My
Yeah.
dad's one of these really strong silent types. He
Mhm.
won't say anything. But
I see.
when I did when I started like getting paid for video work and things, um, well, this was kind of back before I started getting paid, but like he knew I was interested in filmmaking and all the rest of it, and he basically said, as long as you get your PhD, you can do what you want, kind of thing. Because that
That's
was almost
awesome.
that was like the fallback.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, if he messes up anything, like he's got a PhD, he'll be able to find a job, you know.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's your dad had the foresight to
yeah,
actually. Yeah. That's good.
like my parents have been very supportive, like totally 100% for me and my sister. My sister's like super creative.
She's the one who does lettering or drawing.
Yeah, she does bookbinding and
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I
or
think I
well,
followed her account.
yeah, her
It was from a past episode that you did with her.
yeah, she was on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And she like designs pictures and stuff. She's fantastic.
Mhm.
And they've been really supportive of her, and because she went to art school and all the rest of it, and I went down the engineering route, and now I've kind of gone back into the creative. But again, there's so much in the creative industry that can relate to engineering and science and everything. Like filmmaking, it's like lighting and sound and all the rest of it, and it's all
It's
related.
intertwined.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
it's
It is.
related. It's
Yeah.
can we touch on that subject real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Because it's really interesting how you just told the story about your parents and how they're very supportive. My dad was the complete opposite.
Oh, really?
Typical Asian father. He's
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do with all those designs? Are you going to design your way out of problems? Are you going to get paid for your drawings? And yeah, it's very much like that. So he
Yeah.
was not so. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's not supportive. Maybe he's not vocal about it. He was supportive in the sense that he did help me go. He basically paid for my school.
Yeah.
You know, I'm completely being honest. Like he paid for my school, even though he didn't like it. He said, "Why would I take a course in?" Because I took advertising in college.
Yeah.
And back then, that was so old school. We were still talking about billboards and TV ads, radio ads, which is almost non-existent today.
Yeah.
I mean, they do exist. It's not the most feasible way of throwing your money away.
Yeah.
So he was just saying, you know, why the arts, basically. So my brother and I grew up just very creative in
Yeah.
that sense. And we were ashamed of it because we felt that it had no real contribution to humanity.
Yeah.
Because that's how they made us feel.
Yeah.
My dad always, he's like, why don't you be a doctor? Why don't you be a lawyer? Why don't you be an engineer? And I'm like, because I'm not smart like that. And I'm just not interested enough. And so I was more of the creative type. And I remember throughout almost my entire life, just until recently, I started to get, like, I was never confident. I was never proud to be a creative. I went to Adobe Max just last December.
Oh, wow.
My
I'd love to
first
go to
time.
Adobe Max, yeah.
It's, oh my God. It's so funny because I told my brother, okay, this year come January, I was like, let's save up for Adobe Max this year. We're both going to go. And then this happened. So I'm like, but it was the best convention that I've ever been to. And I remember I was speaking with this one lady during lunch, and she worked for McAfee, I think, the
Yep.
antivirus thingy. And so I forgot what her role was there, but she was definitely more of like management. And she
Okay.
was there with one of her coworkers because she was the creative, like the one that she was with. And I was speaking with this first lady, and she didn't sound like she was a creative at all in the beginning. And
Okay.
then she asked me, "What do you do?" And my gut reaction, my gut answer was, "Oh, I'm just a graphic designer."
Yeah.
And then she stops me. She's like, "Did you just say you're just a designer?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Why do you say that? Why aren't you proud of it?" And it came out of my mouth so naturally that I never really had a chance to think about it.
Yeah.
And basically, I found out that she also is a creative. She started with, I think, photography, and she did graphic design, and she's older, much older, and I never would have imagined her to be in that space. And she said, "You should take pride in whatever you do.
Yeah.
If that's who you are, that's what you do. You should never be ashamed of it."
Yeah.
And I, basically had to think about it, and I guess most of it was born out of the whole shame, growing up, like, "Oh, you're a creative, there's no money in it,"
Yeah.
and typical, I would even say stereotypical Asian family, right? Like, where's the money there? Why would you go in that career if there's no money there?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, most of my life I grew up like feeling that way. But now, looking back, like even just in the recent years, even like 5 years ago, I was telling my wife this. I said, the kids, that made me sound really old when I said the kids, but the younger generation now,
Yeah.
they're so fortunate that being a filmmaker, being a photographer, being a creative, anything is so highly, I guess, regarded now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's a photographer, he's a filmmaker. It just
Yep.
sounds so awesome, because now that generation, like this new generation, realizes the importance of the arts, the importance of design. There's so much technical stuff that goes in there. People don't realize that they would never buy anything if it wasn't designed well, if it wasn't presented well, if it wasn't, people would not vote for people if they weren't presented in a good light.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
so much that goes in the background that's creative related.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really happy that people are starting to feel that way. And, going back to your point, you said that it's funny how everything is connected. It really is. And
Yeah.
I remember telling my dad, I said, this is like years later when he's fine. He's
Yeah.
okay now with how everything, I'm like, you see, Dad, I told you, advertising makes the arts makes the world go round. It just doesn't, it's just not apparent because we're usually in the background. It's actually weird because we're like in the background and at the same time we're the face of it, right?
Yeah.
We make everything look pretty, but I'm just glad that everyone.
No one thinks about it. Yeah.
No one thinks about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're still under that whole perception that, you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or whatever to be regarded as successful or even just worth anything. It's kind of weird. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just stuck in my head.
No, totally. It's still like, I do think nowadays it's so much more accessible to be these things as well, because you don't need to, like, I wouldn't say you really need to go to film school anyway, but like anyone can like take a photo on their phone. Anyone can like make a film on their phone. You know what I mean? It's like the equipment is so much cheaper and so much more accessible to anyone. Like, God knows what age the kids are these days that have mobile phones. Right. It's like they take photos of everything,
How do you feel about that? How do you feel when people say anyone can be a photographer, anyone can be a filmmaker?
I would say, it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
Because you could say, anyone can if they put the time and effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyone can, it just means that they're not as good as others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
So, like, anyone can be, anyone, like, see when you're going to clients and there's always that one where it'll be like, it's going to cost how much? Oh, we can do that ourselves. Like, we've got a camera, we'll just take it and we'll do it ourselves. I'll be like, cool, you'd go do it.
Yeah.
And you can almost guarantee that 80% of the time, it's going to be not as good as what you can produce,
Exactly.
Or you won't have done it your way. But then they don't think about it. And it just shows that they're not your clients, You need people that respect what you do and how you do it and the time and effort that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
rather than them just going, oh, I need a video. Like, cool. It's going to cost you this much if you want it. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, no, can't do
I'm-
that. You know?
I'm coming from that question just reminded me of when cameras started going digital,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these photographers were so threatened by it.
Mm.
They said, "Oh, now anyone can be a photographer. You just pick up a camera, you're a photographer now." And then they actually started selling these T-shirts. I don't know if you've seen it, but it basically says anyone is a photographer until, and there's a picture of that manual dial.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that dial, it says it's
Yeah.
set on manual. And I'm like, really? Do you really think that's how you think that you're calling yourself a photographer because you know how to use the manual controls? So that's another misconception about it.
Yeah.
Like, right. So I agree. It's what you said was correct. It's more accessible to people. And I think that's why people are just upset by it, because
Yeah.
when we were younger, it was much harder for us to have access to these things.
Yeah.
These tools. You had to be a certain person to basically, what's that word? Like justify buying a very expensive camera.
Yeah.
That's why the stigma behind this, why would you buy an expensive camera? Are you a photographer? That means you're getting paid a lot of,
Yeah.
a lot of money to take pictures of these rock stars or these celebrities. No, I mean, nowadays, social media alone, it's such a huge thing that big companies are willing to pay these, I'm using air quotes here, regular people, right, for photography.
Yeah.
And because now what you're selling it's not necessarily just the technical aspects of your image.
No.
You're now selling your signature, basically.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
the creative behind it.
exactly.
It's
So
like
when
your desk photos, like only you can.
I have that
people
style.
can imitate you, yeah, but
Right.
you have that style. You've honed it down. You can do it really well. Like, see, I had the idea of when I'm advertising this podcast, is like taking a photo of my desk setup and being like, yeah, tribute to Michael. But I could almost guarantee that it's going to be nowhere near as good as what yours would be, you know?
Well, no, I wouldn't
But
say
it's-
that. I would just say it would have a different voice.
Yeah.
And so, like when you were saying earlier, if you went to a client and they said, you said, "Oh yeah, for this project, I'm going to charge this much,"
Yeah.
and an old school client would say, an old school non-ideal client would say, "Well, I can do that. I can take a picture of it," and your response would simply be just, I agree, you can, but it's not going to be my style. It's
Yeah.
not going to be my own creative eye who's doing it or that's looking over it.
Yeah.
So feel free." And so that's what they're really paying for, your style, right? Your creative touch.
Yeah.
And we all have different styles, and different styles that resonate with different people. You just have to find the ones that resonate with yours. And so, yeah, I think you're right. It's just your own signature that's missing, and I think people need to realize that their value isn't necessarily tied with what they know. Do you know who Annie Leibovitz? I think the photographer. She's
think so.
very I can't even pronounce her name, so I probably butchered it. But she takes a lot of photos of celebrities, like really.
Okay.
I used to see her photos in magazines and just really, really good photography. And I remember seeing one of her. Have you seen those ads probably on Facebook, the masterclass ads?
Yep.
Where
All the
you know,
time.
right? Yeah. So she's one of those.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, I think I know.
Yeah,
what you
she's
mean
one of
then,
those,
yeah.
and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like she's teaching that, and I remember reading a brief interview, and she was saying, "I'll be honest with you, all these gadgetry, all these new cameras and everything, I have no idea how they work."
Yeah.
She's like, "I don't know any of these technical terms. I just know how to find that right light, that
Yeah.
right moment when I take that photo." And I'm like, that's it. That's something that you can't really quantify.
Yeah, you can't
say
really
that-
teach it. You can't.
No,
It's almost instinct, you know?
exactly. And so
Yeah.
that's the thing that people pay her for.
Yeah.
That they're her own style, her own eye, and not necessarily, do you know how to operate this camera? And that sucks, right? Because
Yeah.
we function in that world where everything has to be quantified.
Yeah.
Do you know how to use the manual setting? And so people would ask me, what kind of camera should I get? Should I get this one with this many megapixels? I always say, if you're a beginner, get whatever it is that you can afford right now. Even if it's $100, $50. I don't really care. But teach yourself photography. And your camera, your gear will not define you. Because that's not your style. So
No, totally.
Yeah.
Preach.
I think I'm just very frustrated from my own experience.
Yeah.
When I was trying to find my own voice, and I felt that hiding behind the gear would keep me safe from it, keep me feeling secure and justified with the choices that I've made. I want to be a photographer. Actually, I didn't want to be a photographer. It's just one of the things I love doing. And I'm just very, very happy and fortunate that people found my work. Yeah. So I want people to feel empowered in that sense. Yeah. That you don't need gear that's expensive or anything at all to be defined as a photographer.
Yeah. Do you get bored of taking photos of your desk?
Yes. Yes.
I'm because I've seen some of your landscape stuff and your car photos and things like that, and they're fantastic.
Thank you.
You don't, obviously your feed doesn't fit into that so much. Mm-hmm. So what do you do when you want people to see them?
So
is it not really
I do a couple of
frustrating?
things. Yeah. Well, first I had multiple Instagram accounts. Okay. And they're set on private now because most of them are just family. So I had one for my landscape. I had one for my cars. And
every genre.
Cars, but yeah, pretty much every genre. And so it's just I think I view it like this. When you try to organize your work, you don't put them in one folder. No. You put them in different folders. So that's what I did with Instagram. I have different accounts. But yes, I do get bored. I think that's why you'll see I've switched it up in my feed now. I do tech reviews. I do gear, product photography because that's more interesting to me. The desk will always have a special place in my heart because that's where I sit. And this is, especially around maybe 3:00 my local time when the sun just hits the window just right. Yeah. I'm like, stop everything you're doing and start taking pictures because that's the perfect time for me.
Just start tidying frantically.
Exactly. All this mess, it's gone. It's all in one corner now and you don't see it, but I start taking pictures of my desk. Yeah. But I do get bored. Just like any creative, any person in general, if you do the same thing over and over again, it gets old. It gets boring. And I think if you want to keep things fresh and if you want to keep enjoying something, you have to try something else. Yeah. So yeah.
So how are you getting on with your podcast? Sorry.
My podcast I'm excited about it. Honestly,
you should be.
I should, right?
Yeah, you should. No, you really should be.
Yeah, because I'm in this phase where I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah. But I promised myself late last year that I'm going to do a couple of things, and podcast was one of them. Yeah. So, like I said, I've always listened to podcasts. I've always imagined myself being in a podcast, not necessarily starting one. Yeah. But I said, I'm never going to be in anyone's podcast, so might as well start one. Yeah. So that's what I did. And it's great. It's almost therapeutic for me because I like interacting with people. And if I really boil down the reason why I started that is because I told Chelsea, I said, what's your reason for wanting to start this podcast? And she said, I forgot what she said exactly, but one of them is definitely to inspire people, encourage people. And while those are also some of the main stuff that I want to get out of it, mine is a little bit more selfish, if I'm being honest. My reason for starting that podcast is so I don't feel so isolated. I don't feel so lonely. Yeah. And it's I've been working from home for the last 3 years, and it sounds so glamorous, but it's very, very lonely. Yeah. And when I see other creatives online, and I'm so jealous. I wish I could, interact with other people. That's why when I went to Adobe Max, it was it's an eye opener for me because I'm like, this is how it feels like to be in that energy amongst other creatives and actually interacting with them, hearing their ideas and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of bring that same thing to the podcast. Yeah. And I just was fortunate enough to have met Chelsea, and we just kind of hit it off. And it actually, here's a funny thing. I actually started a podcast prior to that, maybe a few weeks before with a friend. Okay. And so I even put out like a little teaser in my newsletter saying, "Oh, this is what I'm doing right now." And she is a nurse, and I've known her for my entire life. Actually, since she was a baby, which is kind of weird because that really dates me. Like I really am old. But yeah, it just so happened that when we were doing that, we had a lot of technical difficulties, and then the pandemic happened. So she's busy at work, and obviously we can't do the podcast anymore. And then Chelsea, I've known her for a few months already. She's like, I think one of the posts, like from someone else, she kind of just like tagged me, threw my name out there, and she's like, Michael, maybe we should do a podcast or something. I'm like, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So yeah, we met virtually, and we said, hey, kind of just to get the feel, right?
Yeah.
Like to find out if we are a good match, and we just hit it off. We're like, oh, this is awesome.
No,
like
the chemistry between you two is great. Like you've.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that I'm hoping that shows through in the sound. But yeah, we hit a couple of snags. Like we did like 2 or 3 recordings prior to the first one.
Yeah.
Man, I almost got discouraged because I'm like, if this is going to be every week, I can't do this. and then after we met, it's funny because we would record and we would follow like a format. Like this is going to be the topic. This is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And then it sucked.
Yeah.
But at the end, we're talking like, why did it suck? And we would say, oh, maybe because of this, maybe because of that. And then we're like, you know what? This is what we should be recording when we're talking like this, like normally.
Yeah.
Like as, just like regular people.
Yeah.
And so we basically redid it and approached it from that perspective. Although the last recording I honestly felt really bad because my anxiety was just really like through the roof. And, like I said, most people probably won't hear it through my voice, but I can hear it definitely. Like I can even see myself that day when I was sitting here and I just wasn't myself. So tomorrow's going to be...
Yeah.
Huh? I'm sorry.
You weren't in the zone?
No, not at all.
No.
So tomorrow is going to be our new recording. And so I'm excited. It's my podcast has become a special like project for me because obviously we're not getting paid for it. Obviously I'm not looking to monetize it, honestly. It doesn't mean I'm never going to. Doesn't mean I'm never going to say no to any prospects, but I'm just happy that I found an avenue or something that I like to do. And it only takes about, an hour or 2 of my day, my week. Yeah. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So when you invited me over to this podcast today, you don't even know how super excited I am because I'm like, I get to talk to another person.
Well, I was the same because like I've been wanting you on the podcast for a while. Like because we started the podcast for
been a long time coming.
Yeah. Because we started the podcasts at the start of last year, me and my cousin, and it was purely because we used to meet up every week for a coffee and just used to chat about kind of me wanting to go out on my own and kind of ideas and spitballing things. And it was like, this is cool. We should totally record this. And we did a couple like that. And then we tried to structure it a bit more, like you said. And I just didn't feel it flowed as well, because like me and my cousin, we've just got the gift of the gab. So we just talk and just ramble. It could just spiral us down any avenue,
Yeah.
But I also wanted to start like meeting new people and kind of people in the same boat as me, like yourself. And it's good because, like you say, in the creator space, almost everyone's by themselves. So it's good to reach out and chat to them and just see how their mind works, and it kind of inspires you as well as the other person. And it's almost like it's building a community,
Yeah.
in that space, because being a creator, whatever kind of creator you are, it is, like you said, quite a lonely thing to be doing because
very lonely.
You're all by yourself. You're responsible for everything. It's very, but like having an outlet like this, like the podcast, it's very therapeutic almost. Like you just
completely agree.
You just spitball and
it's
go.
Also,
it's good. Yeah.
I think it's also essential because, just another way for you to express yourself because it's almost like verification, right? When you're a creator in any regard, you always look for that validation
Yeah.
in a weird way, right? So because you're putting out content, you're putting out something, and the worst thing that could happen, at least for me, it's not even getting criticism. It's not even getting trolls. The worst thing that could happen for me is dead silence,
Yeah.
right? When no one is acknowledging anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? And and I was talking to Chelsea about this. I said, when you create something, you quite literally put your soul into it, because these are all born out of your own dreams and hopes and, interests and ideas and your background, your childhood, anything. And you have all of that, boxed into this whole, like put into this whole package, which is a video, for example, and you upload it and no one watches it. That hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That hurts. And, a lot of people might not admit it. Some people would say, oh, I don't care. I don't really care. I just want to put it out there. No, you do care. That's why you put it out there, because you care.
Yeah.
If you didn't care, you wouldn't even put it out there. Yep. So it's one of those things that I think, like this interaction right here, you're right. It's therapeutic, because I feel like it's therapeutic because I'm getting some sense of validation, right, from you, that you've seen my work. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's just you've acknowledged it. Like, oh, I know Michael. He has, he put out his work through Instagram, and I've seen it. And that alone is so much for me. Like it feels really, really good. Like, yes, I'm contributing. I'm doing something. So I think interaction between creatives is becoming a thing now. I'm seeing a lot of people starting their podcasts. I know podcasts have been a thing, and it's becoming a thing now because people are working from home, and people are more like the younger generation who used to not listen to podcasts. They're older now, and they want to consume content everywhere they go. They don't necessarily have to watch anything. They can just listen. I think it's becoming a thing, and it's a lot of creators, I feel like, are starting to appreciate that. Even just going live on Instagram, because no one needs to go live. It's just they like it because they like the interaction. They like feeling it's almost like a classroom setting again, where, hey guys, look at what I did, and I want to know what you think, if you have any feedback or whatnot. And how else can you get feedback if you don't interact with them, right? Yeah. But no, I'm sorry, I'm a rambler.
It's okay. No, that's good. It's good. Okay. It's content. It's all content.
There's so much stuff in my head that I just want to throw out. So
no, that's good. No, I'm so glad like you came on this, and I'm so glad you're thriving in the social media space, and you're kind of finding all these outlets for yourself, and it's great. It's great to see.
Thank you for keeping my mind working.
And I'll definitely get you back on again.
I would love to.
That'd be cool.
I'd be hurt if you didn't. Just kidding. But no, seriously, I'd be honored. It's awesome. Dude, we've been waiting for this forever. We have. And I've been like excited. You were the first one to ever ask me to be a part of anything. Oh. When I started my Instagram. Yeah, seriously.
That's almost sad.
What happened to Craig? He doesn't like me anymore. But yeah. All right, Greg, well, thank you so much. You take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and enjoy the coming weekend.
Nice one. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can catch Michael over on his Instagram at MitchSoulDesign. Check out his new podcast along with Chelsea Horn, Coffee with Creators. It seriously is worth a listen. You can catch me over on my Instagram at Craig_Stellar. But yeah, I think that's about it. Stay safe. See you later. Bye.